Hey guys, so we're back here today with John. So we have an existing interview with John, and at that point, it was still his midpoint interview. He was still pretty early on in the program. And the theme for this interview is while others are busy doubting, John is busy winning because he's just doing the work. And I like to do these midpoint interviews I've done it with a lot of people before, and we always have follow-ups because I want to show our confidence in our own processes. And that if you do the processes, if you do the work, if you do the internal shifts, master the frameworks, you will get your results. It's a matter of when and not if. And I'm also joined here with James. So James is a new addition to our team. James used to be a client of mine way back when. And I've since hired James. And I hired James again before his reconciliation. Because again, I was confident that because James was someone who followed the process very, very closely. And with James following the process, his reconciliation was also a matter of time. And lo and behold, here we are, reconciliation. He's working for the team now. And so James is going to be stepping in. I'm trying to take more of a step back into my business and allowing my team to run the business. So I want you guys to get used to seeing James's face. And the reason why I'm doing this too is that I want to again show the results that my clients get is not just because of me. Is that they trust in the system. So I don't create the results. The system creates the results. The system created me. The system then created James. The system then created John and all our client stories. So I want the system to shine, and I want me to shine less so the system can shine, I guess. But without further ado, John, since our last conversation, updates. What's going on?
Sure. So recently, my partner has flown to my country, sorted out all of that visa process together, moved into a new house just a week ago. So yeah,
I'm guessing
been
that's the
settling
lamp
in.
she chose.
Yeah, I know that was from the previous owner. We're gonna get rid of that at some point.
Yeah. So partner
Yeah,
moved in. Where did she fly in from, or where did
that's
she
from
move from?
Brazil.
Brazil, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's quite a
So,
distance.
and you are
English.
English, UK. So
That's right. Yeah,
flew across the world to be together, got a house
absolutely. Yeah.
together.
Uprooted her
Um,
life. Yeah,
yeah.
left everything behind. Came to the country.
What else? What else is happening?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think what we've got coming up, really. Finding a work, definitely, that's a big one. Um, going to musical events together. We're big into our music. So, thinking of starting a band together, stuff like that. Um, yeah, man. It's quite a lot happening all at once. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So that's not to say that everything is perfect in your relationship, as
Mm,
you mentioned. I think whenever people think about reconciliation, people always think about reconciliation as like the moment when things are sunshine and rainbows and everything is amazing, but it's not always like that. The moment when I reconciled, for example, that was the moment when my partner literally said to me, "This is not us, everything is sunshine and rainbows, and us pretending like nothing is happening. This is the moment when I'm deciding, as your partner, that I am deciding to choose to go through and fix this stuff with you." So before reconciliation, it's we have problems, but I don't want, you are the last person I want to see and go through this with. But reconciliation is when we have the same problems, but you are now the person I choose to do it with, to go through this with. I'm guessing that's where you're at right now.
absolutely. It's like you said in the program, whereas before it was basically me versus her. Now it's me and her versus the problem of her confirmation bias. So, being able to talk about it together and having, an open conversation about what she's feeling and being able to contribute towards that and kind of heal a lot of the damage that was done in the past, essentially.
Yeah. James, it was the same for you, right? What's your story like, your reconciliation story?
Yeah, I mean, so I was in the very similar situation with, where when my partner decided to reconcile with me, obviously you're still not at 100%, right? Like that's just
Mm.
the beginning of the steps for us when we were doing the program. It was really about kind of once she decided to come back, we had to start working together to really build that trust and that, build the safety and climb the relationship mountain together. It took a lot of time and effort to get to the point now where we 100% trust each other. So, I mean, as Geoffrey, I think you've mentioned on previous videos, I took a massive pay cut to come here and she was okay with that. And I mean, we would never have been able to have that conversation if it wasn't for the fact that we had the program. So I'm sure that, John, you probably have had similar conversations where being able to use the tools that you've learned has probably created some massive safety that you didn't think you had before.
Absolutely, yeah. It's perfect process, not perfect product. So yeah, especially when we did get back together, when she unblocked me back in December, she saw kind of like the seeds of something there that was, my potential essentially. That there was a change in the way that we approached our problems, and I approached our problems, and that she kind of wanted to follow that and wanted to see where it went essentially.
Mm. And I think what makes people so hopeless sometimes is not really the problems itself, but the fact that there doesn't seem to be any respite or future hope or future possibility of resolving problems together. I think our partners are smart. I think you're smart. You guys are smart in that
Yeah,
we know that problems will come, not always because of the relationship, but something will come. And it's not just about solving problems too, even for us right now. And I was telling the guys before we jump on the call, right now, me and Sam, we're working with a femininity coach. She's working with a femininity coach, and I have to be a very close part to it because, she was going through a lot of childhood traumas, childhood programming that prevented her from being as erotic as she wants to be, right? She wants to be this erotic goddess, right? Like where she's not ashamed of her sexuality, and expressing that sexuality, uh, the kinkiness in a way, right? But to do that, we need to basically uh, unpack a lot of the childhood traumas, even some of the traumas that I created, that life created. But that's the exact same journey that you guys are having, right? Basically, your partner decides to reconcile. It's now the time when, okay, let's actually discuss the traumas that you put me through, that life put me through, that I put through myself, that I went through, and let's unpack it together so we can go from level 5 to level 8 or level 80 to level 100 to level 1000, whatever it is, doesn't matter. That's what the frameworks and the internal shifts are for, is to allow those conversations to happen, what safety is for. And that's really it. Once you create that safety, once you create that environment where you can lead that safety to have those conversations, it becomes limitless. It really, I mean,
absolutely, yeah. It's essentially the essence of becoming bulletproof. Is essentially saying it doesn't matter what you throw at me, how ugly you think it is, or how hard it is to say, or how I'll react. Like I can take it, I can metabolize it, and essentially kind of reflect that back at you and actually listen to what you're saying.
yeah. So the point was like, it's not just about solving problems together. Sure, right now you're still solving problems together, but even when you want to take your relationship from good to great, going from good to great requires you to look at what is blocking you from being great. And that requires a lot of safety to do. So whether you're talking about me, which is we're going from good to great, or you from bad to good, bad to normal, it's the same process. You require the same 5 pillars, you require the same internal shifts, you require the same everything to make that alignment happen, right? James, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things for me was that when I first really joined the program, I would always listen to my partner to solve problems. I never really listened to my partner to understand what she was feeling and what she was saying. So being able to make that internal shift and listen and actually feel what she was trying to tell me, and realize how much more important and meaningful that is to her. And then not only that, being able to handle it, because sometimes, like you said, my partner might tell me something that doesn't feel great or doesn't feel good, but you have to be able to hear that tough truth or that reality and understand it. And then you can respond in a way that's a win-win for both of you. I'm sure, John, you're going through a lot of the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just thinking, and there's kind of an irony in it of being untethered, where actually in seeking to understand first, you actually gain the understanding that you crave, which is what I found. Where, even stuff like, um, like a problem we had was admiration. But so if I start from the place of saying, well, what do I admire about my partner? And being like, wow, I really love this, this, and this. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, she's like, hey, John, I really admire this about you, or this, and this, and this about you. And I'm like, wow, okay. Like that, that wasn't there before,
Yeah.
or yeah.
But I want to address something important you guys said, and I want to transition to the second point here, which is about our role as men, or just leaders of the relationship in general, whether you're masculine or feminine, whatever, doesn't really matter to me. But our job here is to create the right environment for people to thrive, for people to grow into their fullest self. And I can see a lot of people rebutting what we're saying or objecting to what we're saying by saying basically, to say another way, I think a lot of men are really afraid of deeply listening and building that bulletproof vest to allow their partners to share the full extent of what they think, what they feel, even though they may be ugly sometimes, because they're afraid of their partner walking all over them, being a pushover, for example, their partner taking advantage of them. So being bulletproof is not being a pushover. Being bulletproof is not just letting your partner walk all over you. And I want to start this by saying that right now, most people's approaches with like red pill or toxic masculinity is, if their partner, let's say, says it feels some really bad things about the relationship, about you, about each other, and they express it, the male approach is to squash it down, to shut it down, to stop the conversation from happening, and saying like, either justifying by saying like, I didn't do that, or you interpret it wrong, whatever it is. Did you guys do that before joining the program? And
Yeah,
why did you guys do that? What was the thought process that made you take that approach?
I mean, I can speak on my behalf that I was very solution orientated. So, she would say something and I'd be like, okay, well, why don't you just do this, this, and this, rather than actually exploring like what's she actually going through? And would I give that same advice if I was experiencing the exact same thing that she was? Like, and I found actually a lot of the time I was actually invalidating what she was saying by just trying to jump straight to, do this, do this, do this.
Yeah. James,
And
I
I
know
mean,
you used to do that a lot, because you told me.
Yeah.
I was definitely,
Yeah.
guilty of that. I think, for me, a lot of it was just, society and childhood. And, as I was growing up, if I had a problem, I was told, well, go solve it, or here's the solution and move the hell on. Like, there wasn't a choice of like talking about you were told not to talk about your emotions. That wasn't a manly thing to discuss. We didn't care about the emotions behind anything. It was always, well, you have a problem, fix it or move on. Like, that was it. Like, it was even, I was a kid, I'm older than you, so we used much more offensive terms back then. So John's laughing, he knows. It's like, that's one of those things that just, it held me back for a very long time because I didn't care about emotions. I always thought, and my whole life was told, that they were secondary. It wasn't something that I needed to be concerned with.
Yeah. And I think for me, I had this illusion that if my partner misunderstands me, for example, misunderstood something I did, misunderstood, and she basically makes herself angry over the misunderstanding, that me getting angry back at her and telling her, hey, it's not okay to misunderstand people like that. Can you please ask me questions next time so you don't misunderstand? I thought doing that would actually remove the problem or teach her a lesson in a way and show her who's boss in a way subtly, right? But what it actually did is actually made my partner feel a lot more unsafe, so that she's still gonna keep making misunderstandings. People do, it's just people. You do the same. But instead of like expressing to you those misunderstandings, she bottles it in. And then that creates a more lack of safety, that creates more self-preservation, creates more misunderstandings, creates more anger, creates more feelings. And that's why I think a lot of couples get to the place where they have let so many feelings brew, negative feelings brew, because they're not creating that space to talk. What's funny is that when I start to become more bulletproof and I start to just listen and allow her to just share what she really thinks about me, and some of the stuff are really ugly in the beginning. What's funny is that it doesn't actually enable her to and train her to act in a worse way. She actually became softer. She actually became nicer. She actually became more tranquil, more calm. Because it creates a safety, but also removes that need for self-preservation. Did you guys see or feel the same in that this paradoxical thing of the more you enable your partner to share her volcano with you, the better actually she behaves. And it goes very counter to how most men think, which is that, oh, most men, many men are so afraid to create safety because they're afraid of being pushed over and walked over.
Yeah, I can speak from my experience. When my wife would criticize me, it was like, a dagger in my chest. It's like I felt like I was being personally attacked. But actually, it came like when I actually stopped to listen and understand her, it actually came from a place of care, and that she was actually, she was upset about something, or she thought, no, you really need to change this because like it's gonna, like even stuff like you need to lose weight, or this needs to change, or that needs to, like it's generally because she wanted the best for me, and that I could only learn that when I slowed down and listened to what she had to say and actually explored her perspective with her and actually kind of like zoomed out on the problem instead of making it about myself, essentially.
Yeah. James?
Yeah, it was a night and day difference between
Yeah.
once I properly learned, you know, how to follow the frameworks and how to, did the internal shifts. I mean, the interactions that I have with my wife now aren't even so. I mean, I was to the point where I would do things that were as terrible as when we would have a conversation or an argument, I would get angrier than she was and attempt to either force her to get calm so that she would try to calm me down and rob her of the ability to be angry and take that away from her. Or I would try to get her angrier than me so that I could pretend to be the calm one and tell her, hey, calm down, you're being crazy right now. And, gaslight her and make her feel like a bad person. And that killed everything. There was no communication. There was no gentleness or kindness at that point because she couldn't win. I created a situation that was impossible for her to succeed in. So
Yeah.
now she feels that safety to tell me anything, and it's so much warmer.
And it goes back to the thing I always say, right? Is if you think your partner is so animalistic and so amoral, where if you enable her to share, if you create that safe space where she can share her thoughts, her true feelings, that you are scared she will take advantage of that and go like, well, if I can share with my partner whatever I feel, so let me take advantage of that and just like fuck him up, right? If you think your partner is that messed up, then no wonder she doesn't feel safe with you. Like if you think so lowly of a person that you think like, oh, it's like an animal, right? It's like, oh, you have a gap. Oh, you go to that gap, right? Then of course she doesn't feel safe with you. So a lot of men are stuck in this cycle where the only way they know how to respond is whenever they get this very tough expressions, they respond very negatively because they fear their partner taking advantage of them, crossing their boundaries, whatever it is. But because they fear, they respond in this bad way, which destroys more safety, which creates more of those negative feelings in their partner, right? And this creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where they see, I told you my wife is a terrible person, because no matter how much I try, she gets worse and worse and worse. But she's getting worse and worse, not because she's a bad person, but because you're literally creating the environment that makes her a bad person, that makes it hard for her to be a good person because of self-preservation. Well, I think what unlocked in a lot of you guys is you see, okay, if I just change the way I look at relationships in a way where, okay, let's trust here that my partner is actually good. There's a good in there. All we need to do is create the environment of safety that allows her to nurture the good herself by creating that safety. You notice that once you respond with that safety, by creating that safety, your partner softens a lot. And then this creates a different self-fulfilling prophecy where you see, okay, maybe my partner is a good person after all, because every time I just create the environment and allow her potential to come to grow, to evolve and be nurtured over time, it's a beautiful thing to see, you know? But the hard part for me, James and John, is like, how do you make people see that potential? When
It's tough. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, continue.
go
I was going
ahead.
to say, I mean, it starts with victim mindsets, I think, not self-victimizing yourself, especially with something like, you know, equal blame. I know I suffered a lot of that, where I thought, well, you know, if she says I have to improve something, then she has to improve something as well. And there was a lot of like cognitive distortion around, you know, like, I don't know, like not giving her a fair chance to actually express herself, I believe. But yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
And I mean, for me, my victim mindset was perfect product, where I was
Yeah.
like, well, you know, I'm a good husband. I provide money. We have a house. I take care of anything that needs to get paid for and things like that. So you get into that illusion that all of a sudden, that's all you have to do to make somebody happy. That's all that you have to do to really care about somebody. As long as you're doing those manly things, then that should be enough. And that's not enough. That's not what giving people what they really need, because I myself needed more than that. Like, I think the biggest thing I took away from getting rid of the victim mindsets was how much I actually feel more fulfilled in my relationship now.
Mm.
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 Yeah.
So I think the
Yeah. I mean,
takeaway from this is like this section is, I think time and time again, we prove to people that your relationship and your partner actually has a lot more potential than you think. And the reason why we want to make the internal shifts and create the 5 pillars is to allow us to create the environment in that relationship that allows our wives, our partners, our children, our employees to not act out of fear, to not act out of self-preservation, and act out of more inspired, more positive, more abundance mindset, to where it makes it easy for you to reach your own potential. And I think when you learn to create the right environment to allow your partner to reach her potential, it's amazing how much you will see your partner will change. But if you are operating from fear, this tit for tat game where you're so afraid of your partner taking advantage or you're being taken advantage of, and you're operating from that scarcity mindset, ironically, you will do things to sabotage your action, sabotage the relationship that will make your scarcity and your fear into a self-fulfilling prophecy. And a lot of people are so blind to this and they're so stubborn about it because they're living a life where they literally only expose themselves and allow themselves to see the self-fulfilling prophecy that they live in. So self-confirming beliefs that they live in. So just understand, guys, there is another way to live. There's another cycle that you can start here, but you need to humble yourself down and realize there's another cycle. Relationships aren't supposed to be so combative. They're supposed to allow you to build each other more and more and more and more. And that's actually brings to my third point. Because the reason why I'm starting this podcast, I'm starting soon with my wife, is that with like Andrew Tate and so many of this toxic masculinity stuff, they see women almost like an animal. And relationships are very transactional, right? The man provides the money, the man provides this, provides that. The woman needs to give me this. The woman needs to give me this. And it's just very transactional. It's a zero-sum game in a way. But relationships for me are very different. For me, for example, I say I could not have built my business and got the success that I'm looking for in my spiritual self, in my life, without my wife. My wife actually synergizes together. While a lot of people say they see relationships very differently. They see like, oh, my relationship is a distraction from my career. Do you guys see how when you create this right environment in the relationship and you learn how to lead the relationship, that you're actually stronger with a relationship than you are without?
I don't know if John agrees with me on this, but before I joined the program, I think the thing that kind of makes those like the Andrew Tate bullshit and the advice you find on Reddit and stuff like that believable is because it's feeding into that fucking victim mindset. Like it makes you already have that thought in your head that, oh, I'm this great guy and my wife's betraying me and this is her fault. Why didn't she take our vows seriously? And then you have somebody out there selling this basically snake oil saying, you're right. Everything that you think is right. And it just feeds into that belief that you already have. And it takes, like you said, you have to be humble and realize that, hey, there is a different way. That's not the right way to live. And you're costing yourself to be able to join the program and kind of get past that and see what's available otherwise. I don't know if John feels the same.
Yeah, it's sad because what it does is it robs you of true intimacy with your partner. Like, even if you want to look at it from a kind of more self-interested point of view, or like try to align your interests, like I haven't experienced just the level of connection that I had with that I've been having with my wife right now. Just being able to understand her feeling understood, and us being able to to resonate and have that back and forth is something that you can't get with the red pill stuff. It's about domination essentially, and it's about you're the man lording above her, and she's kind of the feral animal that you kind of have to tame. And it just robs you of this whole other tenderness.
That's a wonderful point because, I always tell James too, I want people to feel what we feel in our relationship, in our marriage, because for us, we have sex like twice a week, 3 times a week, like a normal, healthy couple. We have pretty good sex. We have pretty good intimacy. But for us, sex is not the pinnacle of what we seek and what we get from a relationship. Sometimes, the whole podcast idea came about because for the last 2 months, we've been traveling. We've been seeing family that we haven't seen before. And every single night after, when we go back to the hotel, we talk for 2-3 hours, me and my wife. And these talks, we tell each other, wow, the level of us being seen here, the level of how we see each other, how I feel seen by you and each other, the depth of the conversation we have. I think people need to see this. People need to see this conversation because this is transcendental, this feeling. And that feeling that we get from those conversations of being so seen in a level that we have never felt seen elsewhere, it beats sex any day. It beats orgasm any day. And I feel like with a lot of Andrew Tate guys, like dominating women, getting that sex with a beautiful model or whatever it is, it's like the best they can get, but they can never access this higher level self-actualized feelings that a human needs to feel eventually. And I think that's the reason why a lot of the pickup artists that you see eventually abandon pickup artists and they have long-term relationships on their own, and they seek the higher level human needs and the self-actualized needs because it's objectively better. I mean, that's what you're talking about, right, John? Like, it just
Yeah,
feels,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, like for me, the feeling is it's been like living inside my partner's brain, essentially, where she'll, we'll have a back and forth, and I'll kind of summarize what she says, and she'll be like, "Wow, what the fuck? How did you even know?" To the point where even if she's expressing something tough and she has some reservation about it, I'll kind of go a step further, make it more tough, more resonant, and she'll almost like take a step back, like, wow, yeah, that's exactly what it is, but like I didn't know if I wanted to tell you that. And there's a level of there's your walls essentially come down completely, and there's no barriers between you. It's just you and another person. And I think kind of on a human level where everyone wants to be seen, and like everyone wants to have themselves sort of kind of reflected back at them, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's also, if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the top level is the
Mm.
self-actualized needs. And that's the point in the hierarchy of needs when we focus not only on ourselves anymore, but we focus on something bigger than ourselves, something outside of ourselves. And I think that's the level of fulfillment that we can get to, that a lot of men miss is, sometimes I see, well, my wife and I have been together 9 years now, and I see the evolution that my wife has had. I see the evolution financially, spiritually, skills wise, as a human being, the personality changes, how much childhood traumas and stuff that she's gotten over. And she said this to me, and I'm sure she'll share this in a podcast eventually, where she'll say, you let me do that. Like, you created an environment for me to feel safe, to abandon my childhood traumas, to abandon what I held on to before, and to grow into someone I wanted to become. And knowing that you had a part in creating that environment and seeing something blossom, a person blossom like that. I mean, like, that requires a way of living, a way of thinking that is so far from the red pill, where it's all very self-serving. It's all like, what can you do for me? I mean, it requires a level of selfishness, a level of like consciousness, a level of value creation and paradigm shift that is just so different than how most people live their life, how most men see relationships. How do you guys see your role as a man, as a leader now compared to before?
I mean, I think one of the things for me that's a big difference is I think about the future, and we only get one life, right? When you're dead, you're gone. So what if I had 50 one-night stands that put me down as a bad memory that they had over the time? Like, my name dies when I die, when that situation happens. But in a healthy relationship, like I have with my wife and I have with my friends and I have with my kids, that as they move on, they're never going to forget me while they're still alive. It's my legacy. It's my future, is my relationship with them and the feelings that they have about me. The one night stands that I had in college or before, they might not even remember my name now at this point, right? Like, so that level of fulfillment you are never going to get following that style of red pill bullshit. Like, for me,
Yeah.
that's a huge difference.
I distinctly remember when, you know, things were at their worst, and my wife was coming to me and saying like, "You ruined my life," and my response was I had to be this stoic robot who said, "No, I can't feel what you're feeling right now. I have to keep going on my mission, and sort of providing for us and being, like." Completely ignoring that whole other side, the other, like the tender emotional sides, and that level of kind of emotional like containment, being the masculine container for like this kind of softer feminineness. And I completely conceptualize what it means to be masculine now in a very different way than what I used to.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you mentioned the masculine container it's interesting because we talked about that, I think, in the last interview, where I also see my role as that now because I'm going to be a father soon. And
Yeah,
I think about
congrats.
my role as a father, right? It's to provide the container, to provide that space where my kids can really explore and dare and have the courage to expand their mind, spirituality, emotions, knowing that there's a safe space they can go back to and say, okay, this is home base in a way, where we can talk about stuff. And I think I see my role with my wife as the same thing. You know, my wife has really stuck with me for the last 9 years in building this business. And now I want her to build her life and her mark, make her mark in the world. And it's less about me now. It's more of me being that masculine figure to be able to create that safety so I can contain a lot of the turbulence, a lot of the difficult moments that she will go through as she's doing this. And I have this cup analogy that I always that I share with you in the program too. It's like, you know, people who are dependent, stage one, they're like a cup who is half full, right? They're so scared of other people taking away water from their cup. They're actually going to other people and taking from other people to fill up their own cup. That's when you were younger. Now, a lot of men and a lot of red pill ideologies are really the second level where they just have enough water to fill up their own cup. These people, you'll notice, they're so afraid. They always play the power game. They're so afraid of other people taking away the water. Well, yes, they have the cup themselves, the full cup themselves. They know that women, everyone else will take away the water. And they're always like, the tit for tat game is very strong. But I think the real growth, the real self-actualized growth comes when you're the third level, which is the overflowing cup. Like you, John, James, and myself, and a lot of the clients that we have, we're now so overflowing that we're actively looking for other cups to fill. It's like, I have too much. I want to fill something. So it's no longer about me. What can you do for me? It's our natural question is, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I do for you? Because we are looking for a cup to fill because ours is overflowing. That's, I think, the true definition of what being a high value man is. But to get there, we need to work on so much internal shifts and so build up so much confidence in our worth based on something real so that we can get there. Like we can't just get to level 3 just by telling ourselves we're overflowing, you know? Do you feel that now that you are? Do you think that was the fundamental shift in what allowed you or led you to be open to this new way of living, new way of looking at relationships, where you don't see relationships as this transactional thing, but more of a how can I be there for her? How can I let her reach her true potential, etc.?
Yeah, it's related. I was kind of thinking about, how the role of men has changed over the last few decades, where it went from, purely like essentially just sort of material financial provision, but women have that now. They don't need that anymore. So like, but it's what a quote I'd use is that energy doesn't go away, it just gets transferred. So women are looking for something else in men, which is emotional provision and emotional, like a bit like we said, containment. Yeah.
Yeah. James?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole reason I took the job. It's because I have that kind of overflowing cup that I wanted to share with other people who are going through the same thing that I'm going through, because I didn't want them to, like, I know the mistakes that I made. I always tell the story of like the guy who falls in the well and the priest walks by and he says, "Father, help me out." The priest throws down a prayer and keeps moving. And then the doctor walks by, the guy yells up, the doctor writes a prescription, throws it in the well, keeps on moving. Finally, the guy's friend walks by, jumps in the hole with him. The friend's like, "Why the hell would you jump down here with me?" He's like, "Well, I've been down here before and I know the way out. Like, I want to be able to provide that to other people so that they can find the same way that you showed me how to get out."
Yeah.
So I definitely think that my cup is overflowing in that regard.
And James made a huge sacrifice, I know, coming to work for me, because his line of work before had nothing to do with what he's doing now. So obviously when he came here, large pay cut. You live in New Jersey, so it's not a cheap place to live. So yeah, the altruism there shows a lot. So thank you, James, for that. Um, so you mentioned untethering, John, as one of the biggest things you're focusing on right now.
Absolutely.
In the
Yeah,
recent post that you made. Why untethering specifically, and what about untethering?
essentially, it lays the foundation for how you do the rest of the program and how you live your life, how you conduct your relationship. And it also was revealed to me when I, discovered my partner's confirmation bias and her negative bias about me, was that she was testing to see whether I did because I am, whether I gave, for example, gave a gift to her because that's who I am and I loved giving that gift, or because there was like an ulterior motive, because I was, almost like I was lording over her and saying, so when am I going to get my gift? Where's my gift? Essentially. And it's fundamental, as your baseline, to have, like we were talking about, these healing interactions with your partner, and for her to feel that your changes are genuine, and that she can truly trust in you.
Yeah, that's so important, right? So in the program, we give this example of, imagine you got a gift from someone, but you know that the gift comes with strings attached. Like they want something from you, either a thank you, either like a reciprocal gift, something like that. Can you take that gift freely and willingly? It'll be really hard for you to do that. Or imagine that someone gives you a gift, but deep down, you know they didn't enjoy the process of giving you the gift, of getting out there and buying you the gift, finding you the gift. It's a chore to them. Can you receive their gift properly? No. The best gifts are from people who will give you the gift without any desire in mind, without any want in mind, and who actually enjoy the process of giving you the gift. And so the problem with a lot of people is that, they're trying to reconcile and they learn all these great things to do, wonderful things to say, etc. But you can tell that during the whole process of reconciliation, they're hating every moment of it. They're like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to the point where we reconcile and we fix all the problems." Or they do something, but they're secretly looking back like, "Okay, I'm looking for the good reaction now. I'm looking for the good reaction now." And then when they don't get the good reaction right away, they go, "Wah, what's the fucking point of even doing it? What's the fucking point of even trying?" Right? That is something that only tethered people do. And as long as you do that, your changes will never be believable. There's this video that I showed you guys about the man in front of the Las Vegas judge. My team, if you're watching this, please put that video here. But you can see in that video, like the guy was basically saying in the beginning, "Hey, trust me, judge, I've reformed. I won't do it again. I'm so good now." Then the judge says, "No, I don't believe you." Are you fucking kidding me? And he jumped the judge, right? It's like when your partner sees you changing, she will test you. She wants to see, is your changes real? If you respond to a resistance by basically retaliating and saying like, "What's the fucking point?" or saying like, "How dare you not believe me?" that will tell your partner everything she needs to know. And this test can be 3 months, can be 6 months, can be 12 months, who knows? But John, you're in the middle of that test right now,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like before you joined the program, you were having the test too. You were having the same test. How did you fail your tests before the program?
Man, it was essentially taking her for her words when she said, "This is hopeless, like we're never going to improve, it's never going to get better." It, you know, crushed me, completely crushed me. Whereas like now I see what she's looking for is, am I going to take that at face value? Or, am I going to continue changing anyway, despite there being no hope? And despite there being like, no reason to continue, I will continue. And that's the reason ultimately that she'll come back to you. You have to kind of let go of the outcome, clinging onto the outcome of getting her back in order for that to actually happen. There's a paradox there almost.
Yeah, the saddest thing is when I see people who wants to join the program, and we put people through the ringer when they apply. So it's not like you apply and then you go to get in. It's usually like 2-3 week lead time, because we want to make sure for ourselves, are you sure you want this? But then in week 1, they're like, yeah, I want this. But then their partner tells them it's hopeless. And then on week 3, they're like, oh, forget it. I don't see the point of even joining. It's hopeless. It's like, yeah, if that's how you respond to your resistance, no wonder your partner has no hope, right? Because you just showed like you don't have any genuine reasons to change. James, before I go to you, I want to correct a potential misunderstanding with people, right? So when you said earlier, hey, when your partner tells you there's no hope to give up, you kept going. A lot of people kept going in their toxic ways. They use it as an excuse to bombard their partner to like, yeah, don't do that. That's not what we're saying, guys, right? What we're saying is when your partner tells you there's no hope, that's when you need to double down on the right changes. In the program, we have the treating the hemorrhage script, the frameworks, the internal shifts, right? Then the right changes. It doesn't mean you say like, okay, so Jeff tells me I need to double down, so I'm gonna blow up her phone and annoy the shit out of her. Like, that's not what we're saying, right? You have to do the right things too. James, what was the resistance that you got?
I mean, I got the same kind of, like, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. I just want to get the divorce and move on. I went the opposite route. So I went the love bombing route. Oh, you're the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Let me buy you every sort of gift I can think of under the sun. Let me try to, take you out for dinner every night. Let's go to the place that we had our first date at. Let me text you every hour and a half and make sure how you're doing and stuff like that. So I went the exact opposite way, which is equally, if not worse, as
Yeah.
far as toxicity goes. And I mean, I think the untethering sort of ties back to the gift analogy where, like, now that I am untethered and my wife's untethered, I know that she's choosing to stay with me.
Oh, James, your mic cut out.
I know that she's choosing to stay with me of her own free will and volition. It's not something that she's being forced to do or tricked into do, or she feels guilty that she has to do. And likewise, she knows that I'm choosing to stay with her for the same reason, because I want to at this point. It's not because I'm forced to or I feel like I have to.
Yeah. So untethering allows your whatever you do and say to not only sound more genuine, which prevents that resistance. But when you do get resistance, which you will get it, because it's the human's way to find out whether your changes are real or not. It has to be that way. And when you do get resistance, it's the only way you can keep doubling down without using so much willpower on the right processes through those resistances. And when your partner can see that even when I resist, he still is dead set on these changes, at some point your partner's gonna go, shit, I think this is real. Like, I don't see any other way this can be fake. And that's when the surrender happens. That's when the falling happens eventually. And that can take 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. I don't know when, but that's when the falling and surrendering happens, to fall back in love, to fall back into the relationship, etc. And that's where, John, you are at, James, you're at as well. But people need to understand, like, untethering is the first step. It's like the soil in which everything else grows. Without that soil, whatever you do, whatever you plant is not going to grow, is never going to grow. Right? Any other comments on that before we move on to the next
I
point?
was thinking of my experience, like why my partner couldn't come back to me and why it was necessary to be untethered is because when she gave me what she wanted, she was always punished for it. Essentially, where like, she would say, okay, this time I'll give him another chance, and I would chase to get the outcome, chase and chase and chase, and then I'd get what I wanted, and I would basically just discard all my changes and say, fuck it, like that doesn't matter anymore. I got what I wanted, and we just go straight back to the
Yeah.
same hemorrhages, the same problems. So that's the
Yeah.
reason, why you have to be untethered, even during good times as well, when you get the outcome.
So we have a long video, guys, a 2-part video on untethering. Please watch that for you to understand what untethering is and how to untether. But I want to bring to the next point, which is perfect process versus perfect product. And it relates to untethering quite a lot because James and I were on this call. And I know, and this call will always be in my mind because I was in Canada when I took this call. I was in Quebec and I had to step outside my hotel room, fight spotty Wi-Fi to take this call because we had a client who joined the program, didn't follow anything in the program. His wife reached out to us and basically wanted to talk to us, say, hey, what the fuck is going on with him in your program? Because ever since he joined your program, he's been worse, right? But what he's doing was he was using a lot of the stuff he learned in the program to basically try to convince his wife of how much he has changed, which goes against every tenet that we say, right? And the wife basically says, you know what, Jeff and James and Sabor, I don't believe anything he's saying. In fact, he's using your program as a way to emotionally blackmail us in a way where if you don't believe that I have changed, then he'll get all angry. So that is a guy, again, who is tethered as fuck, right? He wants to do X, and as soon as he does X, he wants to see an immediate reaction, an immediate result, immediate thing. That's what hunters do. I hunt today, I get food. But if you're a farmer, what you farm today, you may not see the harvest till the next year, maybe. And we're trying to train people to be farmers here. But we're also trying to train people to be embracing more of the perfect process than perfect product. What's funny is we got a follow-up response from his wife after we talked to his wife and the client and gave the client like a rude awakening. And we got a response from the wife saying like, hey, I see a lot of improvement in this client, and this client has stopped making promises, false promises, and so on. And we'll show the text here, okay, and somewhere on screen. But what's funny is this. Your partner is not looking for you to prove to her that you're perfect. She knows you're not perfect. And you trying to prove to her that you're perfect is just going to make things worse. Because it shows your partner that you are in denial. And people in denial cannot grow. So if you, ironically, the more you try to prove your partner that you are perfect, the more she would pull away from you. Because it just shows her that you are not capable of growing. You cannot grow. You haven't even accepted your flaws. But the funny part is like the moment that client says, I'm not perfect, so let me step back and grow. That's what his partner wanted to hear this whole time. Because at least now that says, okay, at least this guy understands the problem and accepts the problem. And when the guy accepts the problem, there's hope for change here. The same way, if an alcoholic is in denial of the fact that he's an alcoholic and tries to prove to the world that he's not an alcoholic, that's fucking hopeless. But once he says, you know what? I am an alcoholic. I have a problem. That's when everything starts, right? What was that moment in your lives when you made that acceptance? And what allowed you to make that acceptance in your own life of like, okay, I have a problem. Let me stop trying to prove to people of something I'm not. Let me just accept it and do the work. What was that moment for you?
I don't
I
know
can
if
speak. Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, John, I don't know if your experience was the same as mine, but tell them about the first time that you just admitted that you were wrong, like how big of a difference that was.
Yeah, man, I was thinking of my situation. That was like the exact reason that my wife just got completely tired of my shit was the emotional dishonesty, essentially, where she's not stupid. She can see I'm feeling a certain way. Like if I'm not bulletproof, she can see that I'm crumbling, see that I don't have it together, but I'm trying to push through. I'm trying to be stoic. I'm trying to sort of prove something to her or sort of show her an image of how perfect I am. And that was ironically the thing that pushed her away. And I believe the reason that she ended up blocking me last year is because like even when I have nothing to lose, I can never be, he can never be open with me. He can never really show that he has flaws, that he has defects, you know.
James, you were saying?
Yeah, sorry, you were saying something.
No, that was the exact same thing. Like just
Yeah.
being able to admit to my flaws and acknowledge them. That's all. She didn't want me to do any grand gesture or pay any massive penance or, walk through coals or anything like that to prove that I loved her or I still deserve to be with her. She just wanted me to admit what my problems were and show her that I was working on them. But that was the only thing that mattered. As long as I was able to do that, that really jump-started everything.
Yeah. Reminds me of my relationship with my dad, right? So, I haven't been able to talk to my dad deeply for 15 years until this last trip that we had. And one of the most insightful conversations we had was about this, right? So my dad was the kind of person who always tells you, I love you, I love you, I love you. But he loves in his own way. And sometimes his love is not loving to me. Like, like it doesn't feel like I'm loved the way he loves sometimes. And I keep telling him, like, hey, Dad, I think you need to change the way you love people. Maybe it's your wife, your children, whatever it is. And now that I'm an adult, let's have this adult conversation together. And the thing I said to him was basically, look, saying you love us is easy, right? But when you say when you try to convince me that your love is love and that I need to change my definition of love to your definition of love and to accept your love, and you're basically saying to me, I'm not ready to change the way I love, you're basically saying, I love you, but I don't love you enough to want to change.
Mm.
And that's basically what we often do with our partners, right? Our partners are screaming and begging for us to realize, like, hey, I don't feel loved, I don't feel safe, I don't feel good in this relationship. And a lot of men just use that as a way to gaslight and say, no, I think you misunderstood. I was trying to do this, or I'm actually trying to do this. What about all these things I did? Trying to explain and contextualize the love that you give to hopefully allow your partner to appreciate the love that you've been giving. But you're also saying, I don't love my wife enough to change for her. I don't love my wife enough to humble myself down. And that's a big revelation, I think, in our conversation, because it really defines what love is, I guess. And I think when we start to embrace the perfect process over perfect product, and we humble down and say, okay, let me try to accept my flaws, that is actually the most courageous thing that a man can do. And the greatest gesture of love that a man can give is to love your wife enough to let go of your ego and change for the better to create a right environment for your wife. What do you think?
Mm. That was always the biggest problem in my relationship, is that it felt like we were operating on different realities, essentially, where, like, I was so closed off, even in a subconscious way, that I presented my presuppositions about how she felt, and it kind of forced my idea of what she was feeling onto her, instead of actually letting her like speak and actually being open enough to accept that. And that was like the main thing that stopped us feeling connection with one another, or with feeling love for one another, was being open enough, and being having radical acceptance enough to actually to let her say what she needed to say.
Yeah. Yeah. James, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it came into the relationship and the marriage with these preconceived notions of what, the good marriage is and what a perfect marriage is and what we should be striving for and idealing for. And without actually listening and without opening up and being open to that, that he just never even came close to finding it, and found out my viewpoint was entirely wrong in the first place. So learning that process, instead of searching for the perfect product, just trying to know the best way to navigate my relationship, was a massive change.
Yeah. So for those of you guys, like the takeaway from this section is like, for those of you guys who are again scared to, deviate from the existing ways of how men should react and dominate, and try our method of like creating safety and softening and letting down those ego, and letting your partner kind of like dropping the boundaries a bit, and letting your partner kind of say what she truly feels to you, and abandon that fear of being walked over, etc., and just like admitting some of the flaws that she says you have. Don't be afraid to do that. Like, I think this is actually the start of where trust can be built, where you can realize your potential for growth. This is you showcasing your courage, your true strength. It takes a very brave man to be able to look at his inner demons and see it head on. The man who rejects and pretends his demons doesn't exist looks like a courageous man, but is actually a coward in real life, right? It takes a real courageous man to look at those flaws and say, I have these flaws. Let me work on them. Now, one sec. I might pause this interview for a bit because I'm getting like a brain lapse.
That's all right. Don't worry. Yeah.
One sec.
Yeah, I mean, I had a quick thought anyway. It's
Yeah.
just very quick, which is that you have to surrender to yourself before your partner can surrender to you, essentially.
Tell me more about that.
So, not only do you deal with your partner's resistance, but you have to deal with your own internal resistance as well, which is, along the journey of untethering and becoming bulletproof. And, especially stuff like, becoming water and be willing to change, identifying those areas where you've been jammed to one side, and, like things that, say, my partner might recommend, and I'd have this visible discomfort. I think to myself, why am I uncomfortable about it? Why am I uncomfortable about that? And it's because I've created this box around myself, essentially.
Yeah.
And that, that's created all of this internal resistance and stopped me from acknowledging difficult things.
Yeah. I think that reminded me of what I was going to talk about, which is like, I think the big problem that a lot of people have is around irreconcilable differences, where people say, I am leaving this relationship because we're incompatible. We want different things in life. I would gather to say, I don't think I've ever met a couple who's actually has incompatible differences. I think at the end of the day, we are all human beings driven by the same fundamental needs and wants. How we get to the needs and wants may be different, but we want the same things at the end of the day. So, for example, self-actualization needs. My way of getting self-actualization may be different than my wife's way, but we both want self-actualization, right? We both want love and belonging, but the way we get love and belonging may be from different sources, different ways. Mine would be like through family, hers would be through friends, for example, different sources. And really the main differences that people have around irreconcilable difference is really in the how they get the basic human needs. But what's funny is that if you know fundamentally that you want the same things, but you just have a different how of doing it, the reason why couples break up over irreconcilable differences is that they just don't know how to talk through it. So my wife and I, for example, when we first met, we have very different philosophies on life, on whether we want kids or how many kids we wanted, the kind of house we wanted. We had differences in everything. But I think what made us the difference for us and why we worked throughout, despite those differences, was that we were able to create an environment, a safe environment where she can tell me what she likes about her how and what I like about my how. We can put all the cards on the table and align on that. So, for example, over the kids example, right? A lot of couples, the way they talk is like, I want 3 kids. I want no kids. Well, we have a difference. Let me try to convince you why no kids is better, and you try to convince me why 3 kids is better, butt heads, right? But our conversations are very different. We take a step back and we say, okay, you want 3 kids. Tell me more about why you want 3 kids, right? What about kids do you like? What about kids do you want? What about kids make you happy? And here's kind of my fear about having kids. You don't have the same fear. Why don't you have the same fear? Let me be curious and understand. And so here we're understanding now the full extent of the pros and cons of both decisions. And now I'm finding myself being drawn more to having kids. And she's seeing my side of why maybe we shouldn't have kids, right? And we both align together to say, okay, let's go back to the basic human needs that we have. I think we're realizing here that all we want is love and belonging. We want self-esteem needs. We want self-actualized needs. And then we come up with this third way of solving the problem that actually solves the problem better than us trying to solve it individually. There's always like the saying, right? It's like, there's always three truths. There's the other person's point of view, there's my point of view, and then there's the best way, right? The truth. And I feel like a lot of couples don't know how to make that conversation happen to where they can lay all the cards on the table because they don't have the safety to eventually find that win-win together. And the great example of this was Spencer, right? Spencer was with this interview with Spencer, and his wife wanted more kids. He doesn't want to. But what he realized was it wasn't kids necessarily that his wife wanted. It was the feeling of nurturing something, of building something, of being a part of something big, of seeing something blossom. But if that's what you want to address, you can find a bigger win-win than having kids that allows that feelings to happen in a much bigger scale, in a much better scale, and much grander scale. And so again, back to the point, I don't think any couples has incompatible differences. I think every couple, though, that are having irreconcilable differences has a problem with safety that prevents the conversation from happening. And because the conversation cannot happen whenever they have a difference, the only choice they have is to butt heads. They cannot find that win-win. They're blind to it. Do you have that experience in your life?
It's funny how it goes back to, again, the same like internal shifts and untethering and things like that.
Yeah.
Because I can think of relationships that I gave up when I was younger because, well, she didn't really like the same like type of music that I liked. She didn't like going to see the same type of movies that I wanted to go see. So we just don't have stuff in common. So we don't have the same hobbies. So what really is there for us to do in the future? And that's such a like tethered, needy fucking viewpoint that, oh, my partner has to enjoy all of the same things that I have to enjoy or has to do the exact same things that I want to do. And I think that that's such a part of by getting through that and untethering and making those internal shifts where you can feel comfortable. Like my wife and I have completely different political ideologies. We like different types of music. We like different types of food, but we make it work and we find ways to enjoy the things that each other enjoys because we have those shifts made. But like that's such a lazy excuse I think people fall into because of those victim mindsets and not making the shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I even remembered we had pretty much, me and my wife had that exact same conversation about kids the other night. And she always had expressed a fear around it. And I finally figured out it's because basically for all her life, she had always had to sacrifice herself for someone else. So when she was young, it was her mum that was super overbearing and controlling, and she had to please her. And then she had a kid, my stepson had her very young and had to sacrifice herself to take care of him. And finally, like now, he's finally free, so he's sort of 18 now, my stepson, and she's definitely terrified, of losing her autonomy, of losing her freedom. And, like what I did during that conversation was like just explore those feelings of, her feeling trapped and like how is that for her? And that's, you know, a much different conversation than like, oh, I want kids, you don't want kids, and therefore like we you know we're
Yeah.
irreconcilable essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because like it also goes to the question of adaptability, right? And people's changes over time. Because one of the reasons why my wife didn't want kids was because she was seeing how toxic our relationship was. And it reminded her a lot of the environment that she grew up in. But what's funny is that once we created safety together and we felt safety, now she's the one who wants 3 kids. I only want 1 kid, right? So people change over time. And as you change the environment, your desires, your how of how you want to fulfill your key human needs changes over time. And so to what James said, right? When I see people who are so stuck in like, I want to meet someone with the perfect set of interests, with the perfect set of like goals and dreams and life I have, that's great. And nothing wrong with that. But you also have to check into like, what is our ability to adapt like? Right? Because eventually, yes, when you met, you guys would be perfect together. But eventually, as you have different jobs, different careers, different life events, you're gonna change your values, your perspective on things. You're gonna want something that you didn't want before. You're gonna not want something you wanted before. You're gonna have total paradigm shifts. And when you have those paradigm shifts, and suddenly what was a similarity before is now no longer a similarity, how can you adapt through it? And couples who don't have safety to be able to express this stuff, to understand how each other's paradigms, how each other's ideologies have evolved over time, and realign and realign and realign, understand, realign, they're couples who are not adaptable. And so you can see sometimes people who met together and they're soulmates together, but over a course of 5 years, 10 years, they just degrade. It's not because the relationship was not meant to be, it's because you just weren't adaptable, right? And if you don't want to learn to be adaptable, you will forever have to face this consequence of the honeymoon period of your relationship being the best period of your life, and everything goes downhill from then. Find a new relationship, goes downhill from there. You will never feel what it's like to build together, right? Which goes back to what we talked about earlier, is so many men, they don't know what that feels like to build something, you know, where the honeymoon period is not the best period. It's actually the worst period, and everything goes up from there. Men don't get to feel that level of satisfaction, fulfillment, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, you always hear that phrase, you know, we just drifted apart, right? And it's like, yeah, you have to unpack that, like what it actually means. Like, you didn't just drift apart. Like you know, you were unaligned in a lot of important things for a long time, and you know, you weren't able to create safety for a long time, and that's what killed the relationship. It wasn't that, you know, it wasn't a force of nature, just, you know, putting you in different directions.
Yeah. A great example of this was, you know, over the last 3 years, our lives have changed a lot. And because of that, I've had to adopt very different paradigms, different way of living than we've had for a long time. And this is a small example. We were going to the airport, and you know, if your bags are overweight, even by 3 pounds, you have to pay like $100, right? Of like overweight fees.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so her bag was overweight, and she wanted to take the time to like unpack her bag and put it into mine. And I told her like, Sam, don't worry about it. We'll pay the $100. We'll just make this as easy as possible. And she was confused at first, but then we had a conversation about that, and we basically agreed both together that like, time is something we'll never get back. And this time we're spending stressing over transferring the bags and figuring out how to do this in the line, that's time we'll never get back. But the $100, we can get that back. So before, when we were in a scarcity state, yes, $100 was everything to us, right? But now we're not at the scarcity state. We don't have to do that. So Let's change the values in which we live our life. And that led to a conversation about how we want to deal with nannies. How do we want to deal with chores? Like, do we want to do the chores ourselves, or do we hire someone to do the chores? What kind of problems do we want to care about? And what kind of problems do we not want to care about? We used to be very Asian in the sense that we will do anything to scrimp and save $10, right? We would go through so far lengths to save $10. But now we realize, wait, what is more important to us? And that's a great instance when my values changed first, but then through that safety, we had a conversation and her values changed too. And now we're realigned again. We were misaligned, now we're realigned again. And our whole life relationship is a series of misalignment, expressing those misalignment, realigning, misalignment, realigning, misalignment, realigning, because it's just a factor of two people being together. We just are two different people living two separate lives. And so eventually we're going to misalign, but it's all about how we can realign again. I mean, I'm sure you guys feel that for the last couple of years in the program too, where misalignments happen. You have to realign. But the realignment also is important in that you learn how to stay antithetic, right? And actually be able to embrace other thoughts and opinions other than yours. And we talk about being water there. Because the feeling that I get often is the feeling of I was so wrongfully certain about something, that something is right and her idea is wrong, until I understood more about her side, her point of view. Then I realized, maybe your idea is not that bad. Do you have that those moments?
Yeah, it's been recently, like, I said, I thought, oh, my wife is criticizing me. But actually, like recently we were sort of looking at new clothes for me because my wardrobe is kind of, a bit outdated now. It's been a few years. So, like I even had resistance to that and being like jumped to one side, like, no, like I'm utilitarian. I don't want to like, I don't want to sort of focus on that too much. But like actually like when we sat down and she was picking stuff out for me, I thought, wow, this like I'd look fucking good in that. That's awesome. Like it just took the initial. There was a bit of resistance there that you had to break through, and then once you get through it, like, actually, this is interesting. This is a new way that I can become someone else. I can be someone different.
Yeah, and I think that's the another reason why a lot of couples butt heads is that both sides are so hell-bent on their idea that their idea is right. It's more of a fight, a war of ideas, right? Let me show you why mine is right. Let me show you why mine is right. Well, you're wrong. Well, I'm wrong. So blah, butt heads. And no one's willing to budge or willing to see the pros and cons of the other side. And that's not really a people problem. That's really an environment problem too. And that's a lack of safety problem, because when I, let's say, listen to my wife about her ideas of why she thinks a certain idea is right or wrong, that requires a lot of safety for me to be able to abandon my ideas and consider other people's ideas, right? Because if I live in a world where I'm always feeling threatened, I'm always having to self-preserve, even the thought of considering other people's ideas is scary to me. But once I can trust here that this is a safe environment, a safe relationship where I can express my ideas and listen to other people's ideas and explore other people's ideas, that's true safety. And it's vice versa for my partner. For her to want to listen to me, that requires safety from her side as well. And I have to create a safe environment for her to listen to me. So, for example, like recently we had a conversation around because she's going through her discovery of like her erotic femininity side. And part of this project was for me to understand what it's like for her to find her erotic feminine side, right? So I have to also find the erotic feminine side. But for me to even allow myself to explore that area of my life, that requires me so much safety to be able to be vulnerable, to do something that is quite embarrassing, to do something that a lot of men wouldn't do, right? To be able to explore that, and vice versa for her. And so that's where safety come in. Like once you have that, if you don't have that safety, you will create this environment where it's so hard for people to want to move their opinions about anything, to want to explore outside their bubble over something. But when you create safety, you allow it so much easier for just conversations to flow so naturally to the point where both persons want to express, want to listen much more openly. And that safety creation starts with one person. It doesn't start with two. It can start with one person. The same way when you clap, you can clap with one hand. You don't have to clap with two hands, kind of thing. I'm sure you see that too with your relationship, where the more safety you create, I think the depth and level of the conversations you guys can have is deeper, but your ability to listen is easier too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think about everybody talks about, you have that perfect marriage where you see it on movies or TV where a couple is just everything's in simpatico and everything's fine and there's never any issues. Like that doesn't exist. It's by creating that safety where you can have issues come up and address those issues that allows you to really enjoy those moments. Like you don't get the perfect marriage by having everything just sort of click. You didn't really earn anything at that point, right? Like it's working together, overcoming those issues. It builds that bond where instead of fighting each other, you're with each other. You know that no matter what, you have each other's backs and you're growing, and the other person is going to be able to listen and protect you. And that makes you stronger. And that lets you do things that you were never capable of doing before. So being able to have that strength of both of you together gives you the ability to do stuff that you never thought you would be able to do.
Yeah, that's a great point, because like a big part of creating safety is also allowing your partner to see how you perform over these challenges too. Because I know that for my partner, the reason why she can feel so safe in my relationship is because this is not our first rodeo dealing with irreconcilable differences. This is not our first rodeo dealing with tough challenges in our life. And she saw how I dealt with tough news, how I dealt with her expressions, how I dealt with irreconcilable differences before. And so now she thinks in her head, well, I've expressed irreconcilable differences before or tough news before to Jeff, and it ended up being a good thing that I did it. He made it into a good thing. So now if she has something in her mind that's like an irreconcilable difference, why would she hesitate? If she's seen like 2, 3, 4, 5 times, it's been dealt with correctly.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a question for me, especially, like expanding your band of operation and becoming water. It's a question of your making your identity about something, or having a very like subconscious attachment to things. I'm thinking of like times when my wife has told me like, "Oh no, I didn't show you that because you don't like that kind of thing, or you don't like that kind of music." And I thought, wait, hang on a second, I never said that. But my mind wasn't open enough to explore it and to actually put genuine interest into it, and to actually like see all angles of it before, just kind of tossing it to one side essentially.
Yeah, yeah. And we talk about that in the programmer about how when you expand your band of operation, what happens is you really unlock the possibility to share a much more fulfilling life together. Because think about the meals you cannot share together just because you have your own set of likes and dislikes. Think about the moments in your wife's life that you can never be a part of, and the moments in your life that your wife can never be a part of because of the rigid likes and dislikes, right? A great one for me right now is like my wife, she has a very different lifestyle than I do. She has very different hobbies than I do, and I have very different hobbies than she does. But back then, it was her hobbies versus my hobbies. And it was always like, my wife can never see me playing golf, for example. My wife can never see me in my element in a golf course or even in this business sometimes. And I can never see my wife in her elements doing what she loves, doing what she enjoys, because we have such rigid likes and dislikes. But again, because we have created this culture of safety to where we are okay exploring likes and dislikes outside of ourselves, and actually allowing ourselves to become water to like and dislike things that we haven't liked or disliked before. Now my wife can enjoy my stuff. I can enjoy my wife's stuff. Like we share so much of each other than before. And I feel like a lot of couples don't have that. And I think that's also why a lot of couples never feel that high level of fulfillment from their relationship, because they just never opened up the relationship to it. You know, last thing I want to talk about is we talk about safety a lot. And we talk about how safety is not really created by two people, but it can be one person, right? And the question we get a lot is, okay, so if my job is to create safety for my partner, what about my own safety? Like, what about the safety that I feel? How would you respond to people like that now?
Yeah, shall I go ahead? Well, I find that actually a lot of those things through working through the program are things that you are able to resolve yourself, and like things that you're able to see the way that you respond to situations, and like, you know, the victim mindsets you might have, the disguises of desire. Like I found that actually for me, I've been thinking a lot about this idea of becoming the brightest lighthouse. And we talked about having your cup overflowing, where I am able to feel safe within my own emotions as a person. And that naturally will create safety as a byproduct of her, like being receptive to me. And then like, she is paying attention. She does reflect back how I feel as well. And so that, I found that's one way of creating safety, is when you're able to recognize lack of safety within yourself first towards your own emotions. That's when you're able to create it towards her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
James,
mean,
I know you have experience with this.
yeah, on the coaching side and as a member, it's definitely like the 100% the hardest thing I think for people to realize is that it's not about changing your partner or changing other people. It's about changing the way that you view the world and the way that you view instances that occur and how you overcome problems. By changing that feeling in yourself, you get that immense safety before, like, I don't require my partner for safety. If she's loving and caring to me, that's great. That's an added benefit that I get to enjoy. But I know that 100% of the time I'm safe with or without her, because what are you going to do in life if God forbid something happens and she gets hit by a car? Or like there's so many situations in life that can cause turmoil where you can end up alone or be in a difficult situation. The only person that you have that you know that's going to be there for you is you. So you have to be safe in yourself to be able to have safety with anybody else.
Yeah. And the reason why James said that was because like we're actually having an interview in a couple of weeks with a member who was a client of ours, got his relationship of his dreams back on track, kind of thing, in his life, and his wife passed away due to like a blood clot in the brain, just like that, right? And the whole point behind this is like, you have to get out of the equal blame illusion of like, well, if she's not starting, then I won't start. Because at some point, we have to understand that our job, as especially the male figure in the relationship, the masculine figure, is to create a safe environment for the feminine to flourish. The feminine role is to surrender, right? It's a very surrendering role. Think about sexually, for example. Our penis goes in her. She has to surrender her vajay to that, right? Like everything about the feminine experience is about surrendering. And to surrender fully, you need that safety. And to feel safe, you need to feel safe in someone who can be that rock for you. And if you are a man who says like, well, if you don't want to start, I won't start. How can your partner ever feel safe with that? Right? So for me, my job is, let me learn to do the internal shifts myself so that I can create safety on my own. Sure, I want safety for my partner, but I don't need it anymore. Right? So I create safety on my own. I make myself an overflowing cup. And what's ironic is that when you stop needing safety and you get to wanting safety and you learn to overflow your own cup, you create the safe space for your partner to be feminine. Guess what? When you stop needing safety, you get safety. But as long as you need safety, you will subconsciously sabotage the culture to where it makes your partner feel less safe, and you won't get the safety you need. Think about that for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is if you proceed with understanding before trying to be understood, then you'll get both. Whereas if you proceed with trying to be understood before understanding, then you'll get neither. Neither her or you will feel understood. And it's something like even recently, like having addressed my defects, being open about them. Like I remember that like, it was probably the first time she said it. Like when we had a conversation, a difficult conversation. It's like, John, you have your defects and I have mine too, because I created that culture where we could be reflective of one another and actually, and create that safety where like we can recognize that in each other.
Yeah, but it's interesting because again, now she has enough safety to where she can express that to you. She just expressed that resistance to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the beautiful part. And so just to recap this whole conversation, the theme of the conversation, right, is again, while people are busy doubting, you're busy working. And working in this case is not you proving to the world and to your partner that you're already perfect. But working is, again, creating the sense of safety within yourself to work on the internal shifts to make yourself an overflowing cup. Once you do that, you use the overflowing nature that you have to create safety for your partner without any strings attached. You go from needing the relationship to work to wanting it to work out of the state of untetheredness. And once you do that, you realize that everything you do becomes a lot more genuine, a lot more effortless, a lot more naturally flowing, a lot more believable, right? She will resist you. That's okay. But through the resistance, because you're operating from a state of untetheredness, you use that resistance to double down. And eventually, you will be surprised as to how much your partner can fall back to the relationship once you create the right environment. But to do that, you have to be open to the possibility that the way your paradigms of relationship, of how reconciliation should work, etc., may be a bit flawed. That this is not time for you to double down on your existing knowledge of how to fix the relationship, but try a different way. Don't be afraid to be a pushover and try to go to the other side, because you will realize that going to the other side is not you being a pushover. It's actually you taking the more courageous route, the more effective route that will allow your partner to really blossom. And the last thing we're going to talk about is really about this falling versus striving outcome. Remember again that falling in love is called falling in love for a reason. It's a falling outcome. But a lot of men try so hard to approach it with a striving process, right? They want their partner to feel safe with them. They want their partner to fall back in love with them. So they try to jam as much logic as possible to convince their wife why they should stay, why they shouldn't leave, etc. If you do that, ironically, the further you go from falling outcomes. When you start to understand the process to allow that falling to happen by just simply creating the right environment to allow your partner to fall, ironically, that's when everything starts to happen. And we talked about this earlier, which is like the more you need safety, the more you strive to get safety, the less safety you get. The more, when you stop needing safety, you want safety, and you learn to create safety for yourself, and you no longer need safety, ironically, the more safety you get. And that's the paradoxical nature of falling outcomes that people need to get. Any comments on that before we end?
Oh yeah, James, do you want to say?
I mean, I think you summed it up pretty beautifully. It's you get what if you put in the work to yourself, you get it back to you, right? Like that's what it all comes down to in the end. If you work on yourself, then everything else will fall into place. Like that's where it comes into, ironically.
Yeah, I was thinking of the analogy. It's, like this whole process, when you're tethered, it's kind of like standing over your partner when she's falling asleep and asking, are you asleep yet? Are you asleep yet? And you keep, it's completely different. It's, they're striving such as going to the gym, where the more effort you put in, the more you get out of it. And then there's falling, where essentially you let the causes, you have the right causes, and the effects will happen, essentially.
Yeah. So guys, I hope that was helpful for you guys to seeing and debunking a lot of like how I think most people think about reconciliation, think about marriages, think about relationships. And I wanted to show you kind of a different way of thinking, a different way of seeing how the reconciliation process looks like, from the eyes of some people who've actually been there, done that. If you guys want to join this and learn a lot of the different paradoxical paradigm shifts, the paradoxes that is causing you to work really hard right now, but not seeing results despite you working hard. And that's the kind of the irony with striving, right? It's like some people always say like, well, I tried everything, but she's not coming closer. But that's the thing. Like, it's like saying, I tried everything to fall asleep, but I'm not falling asleep. Well, maybe you need to stop using the striving approach. Maybe the striving approach is actually preventing you from falling asleep. So if you are feeling that, where the more you try, the more she pulls away, check out the masterclass. We'll show you what the program is about. At the end of the masterclass, we'll show you how to apply for the program if you want to apply for the program. But we're going to show you paradigms and methodologies that you will not see elsewhere, that is very paradoxical in nature, that is going to go against so far of what you think you know today. But guys, it bloody fucking works, because relationships are falling outcomes. You need to master falling processes to get falling outcomes. All right. Any last minute advice from you guys before we end?
I think I'm good. I think that was a good conversation.
All right, guys. Hope that was helpful. See you in the next one. What do you guys think?
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
It was more
enjoyed it.
free-flowing than the structured one we had last time. But it wasn't disorganized, was it, you think?
No, I don't think so. I think we transitioned quite nicely. It's sort of your marker points between the free-flowingness,
I think so. John, that was good. I know James was saying that we wanted to see more engagement from you. So do that. Engage more, because we want to see you're going in the right direction. Like we always say, don't learn in a bubble.
Oh yeah.
So make sure you don't.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, because if you think these results are good, I promise you, dude, you have no fucking idea what you're in for once you get into phase 3 and phase 4 and phase 5.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So I promise.
Because I know, Geoffrey extended the potential offer of the coaching. That was one of the reasons, because I know that when you get to the later stages, it kind of recontextualizes what you learn in the earlier ones, and you go like, oh shit, okay, that's what that means, and that's so I was kind of hesitant to teach others before I knew what I was talking about, essentially. But yeah, definitely I'll contribute more to the group. Absolutely.
All right, brother. You have a good Friday and weekend.
Yeah,
I'll see some posts from you.
Of course.
All right,
yeah.
John. Cheers, my dude.
All right, see you, John.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.